Let's go live now on the ground in Israel and on the border with Gaza. What exactly is happening? Joining me now is Ashutosh Mishra from one location and also Rajesh Pawar from Tel Aviv from a different one. Ashutosh, you tell us, because there's this constant references to ground assault and evacuation in Gaza, and specifically that the Egypt border is still closed. What are you picking up about the situation? What does it look like?
Well, the humanitarian aid from huge number Egypt has mobilized to the border, but because the Rafah border remained closed, that is not crossing in the Gaza that part yet. As far as the northern part is concerned, Hamas still blocking the civilians to leave the northern part, as they are using the women and children as a shield. As far as Israel's territories and the bordering areas to Gaza are concerned, that remain tense. There is a heavy deployment of artilleries, but here in certain parts what we see, the kind of attack that was unleashed is also because there is a handbook out about the planning of the Hamas, and what you see in my hand is the spring, and this is not the LMG or MMG. This looks like a HMG, heavy machine gun, that was also brought by the Hamas terrorists using these kind of weapons. This explains probably those who have seen the weapons and they have information about, they know about these weapons, they would realize what exactly is this. Now, just on the piece, what I have is the piece of rocket. This was the rocket that was fired by Hamas. You see, it's more than 160 caliber. These rockets were used by Hamas group in these civilian areas, not to target. In fact, the minister from Israel government, who just joined me speaking, also said that when you war, you target the army, you target the military, you fight with military. You don't fire these kind of bulk piece of rockets to the residential, to the civilian areas. But the Hamas unleashed their terror attack. In fact, Saturday there was massive operation by special forces in the Gaza area, where they kidnapped several people, women and children, but they even killed them. So, number of bodies have been recovered by the special forces, though they are not disclosing the locations, making it absolutely classified because of the security and the secrecy of the operation. But this operation still being carried out. A number of the bodies by special forces from different areas in the secret tunnels are being removed, carried out, and being brought here for the funeral and the last rituals. There are a number of people are still missing, and that makes a major challenge for Israeli authority, the IDF, to carry out further operations or to advancing their patrolling or the mobilization within their territory. So all the operation with all the authorities are in sync. They're working together. The human intelligence, the technical intelligence are helping them as far as this operation in the war against Hamas is concerned, Pooja.
All right, keep tracking the latest if possible. Stay on with me also, Ashutosh, because Rajesh Pawar is also joining me. Rajesh, this is clearly escalating, as it looks like, into a regional conflict with the Iran proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon is striking at Israel. So Israel has both southern Israel and northern Israel now to take care of. Do you think this is going to go beyond just Israel and Hamas now?
Look, Pooja, one thing needs to be understood here, that Israel still occupies certain areas of Lebanon, which is in south of Lebanon, near the northern border of Israel. After the 1973 Yom Kippur War, these heights, which have a lot of tactical advantage over the enemy, were not vacated by the Israelis. They are still occupying those heights, and that gives them a lot of military advantage. Now, what Hezbollah is doing is they have been continuously firing on these heights, which are within Lebanese territory, but occupied by the Israelis since 1973. Also, there has been artillery exchange between IDF, which is Israel Defense Forces, and Hezbollah in the northern parts of Israel and southern parts of Lebanon. Now, coming to the weapons which are being used, what I've heard from certain sources is that Israel is using something called daisy cutters, which the Americans used in Afghanistan. This is one of the biggest bombs which can be used, which go quite deep into the earth, into the soil, and destroys underground tunnels. Americans use these daisy cutters in Afghanistan to destroy the tunnels where Taliban was hiding. What I've heard is that the same thing is being used by Israel in northern parts of Gaza so that they can destroy these underground tunnels. And daisy cutter is probably the biggest conventional warhead, which is just a shot of nuclear warheads. It's conventional, but it has very high explosive power. Besides this, as far as ground offensive is concerned, as we saw in Russia-Ukraine war,
yes,
information warfare right now is in full swing here in Gaza and Israel as well. We see a lot of heart-rendering images coming from Gaza now, the way they came from Israel a few days back. Babies dying, and pregnant ladies are under attack, being bombed. So we will continue to see this kind of information warfare being waged from both the sides. And as I said earlier, in the Russia-Ukraine war, we have to take every piece of information coming out from be it Gaza or be it from Israel with a pinch of salt, and because nothing can be actually really verified. We have also seen on social media some clips doing rounds of very small babies wrapped in white clothes, dead because of Israeli bombing. And later on, when you look at them carefully, it turned out they were just dolls. They were not actual real babies. So right now, rather than conventional warfare, it's information warfare, which is in full swing between Gaza and
as you
Israel.
mentioned, the fact remains,
right now,
yes, amid all of this, it is women and children who continue to suffer. That's why the appeal for stop the war and the hostages. Let's spare a thought for over 100 civilians who are still hostages in Gaza. And, that is something that needs to be taken care of. Where is the United Nations, many are wondering, amid all of this. Thank you so much. Rajesh Pawar, Ashutosh Mishra in different locations trying to get us the latest on that. Meanwhile, remember, Zikim Beach. This is in Ashkelon in Sderot, where these areas are being evacuated. This is where the 7th October attack, the terror Hamas attack, had taken place. But now with the possible escalation of that attack, the civilians in Israel are being evacuated to safer areas. India Today's Gaurav Sawant gets us this report from the southern coast of Israel.
The Zikim Beach area of South Israel. You have the army now deployed here in numbers. Earlier, this was the route that was used by the terrorists to infiltrate. Hamas terrorists had used this route when they infiltrated from air, land and sea. So this was the sea route of that infiltration. This is the southernmost tip of southern Israel. This entire area, whether it's Ashkelon, Zikim or Sderot, remains extremely vulnerable even now. So while people are talking about evacuation of a large number of people, 1.1 million people from the Gaza Strip, especially from North Gaza and Gaza City, these cities and towns are also being vacated, whether it's Sderot or Ashkelon or areas around the Zikim Beach. Just look around, a very picturesque beach on the Mediterranean Sea. Usually you'd have thousands of people here, but not a soul in sight. In fact, the police and the army now deployed here, and the army is asking even the Aaj Tak and India Today team, asking me to leave from here because it's not safe to be here at the Zikim Beach for the simple reason the area remains extremely vulnerable. So while you have the Navy that's patrolling this, you have the army that's deployed here, you also have the coastal batteries that are constantly deployed here to ensure that this area does not remain vulnerable to infiltration by Hamas terrorists. But the threat remains. There were attempts made to infiltrate in Zikim Beach even after the 7th of October, and that is why the army here is asking us to leave this place immediately. Clear and present danger. As thousands and thousands evacuate North Gaza, there are thousands who are also evacuating Sderot, Ashkelon and areas around the Zikim Beach, an area that remains extremely vulnerable to Hamas infiltration on ground and rocket attacks on top. Both continue in numbers here. An attempt to find peace, but preparation very clearly for war. Just look around me, where you'd see thousands of tourists, not a soul in sight. This clearly is now war zone Israel, a war that Israel is preparing for, and it's an asymmetric war with Hamas using terror means to infiltrate against perhaps one of the most developed armies of the world. Gaurav Sawant, between Zikim Beach and Ashkelon in southern Israel for India Today.
As the war escalates, remember, rocket sirens are constantly heard, sometimes through the night in Israeli cities. India Today continues to get you the latest. Watch this report by Gaurav Sawant. What happens when a siren is heard when you're in your house, in your residence, in a hotel?
Okay, हम लोग इस समय यहाँ से भागकर जा रहे हैं. We are running away to safety because the rocket alert has been sounded. Watch around. Be careful. Aviv, oops. So We were here to do an interview, but suddenly there's a rocket alert and we have come to safety.
Sderot, meanwhile, is a city that's near the Gaza Strip, has been evacuated now by the Israeli military of the civilians, as there are clearly, remember, escalation that's expected in that area. Ashutosh Mishra sends us this ground report.
India today is at ground zero in southern Israel's Sderot town, and perhaps the last stretch of the town where you have the open terrain connecting to Gaza before you proceed for Be'eri kibbutz. All these areas are now heavily guarded by the armed forces of Israel, and it is also open for the world media to see the kind of terror unleashed by the terrorists of Hamas group, the kind of attack it has done, killing innocent civilian women, children, and number of people. These people, the moment they heard probably there is attack, they were trying to flee from this place, but before they could, number of bullets were fired in a huge number. These bullets were fired. There you can see the toddlers, the small children, young kids, the people who were trying to escape the footprints of the violence and the terror attack. Blood spilled all over, shoes of perhaps the driver who was trying to flee, start the vehicle. Another side, there is a toddler seat made here inside, and his toys or her toys. All you see, no human being alive in this part except the Israeli troops. And the idea of this explains the furious situation, the tension, and of course the terror attack by Hamas in Israel's southern part. In southern and bordering Sderot, with this report, I am Ashutosh Mishra for India Today.